Many Canadians, in fact most Canadians, think that the government taxes them in order to get more money. But that's not the whole story. Before we get the answer to that, please subscribe and, if you can, PayPal to keep us on the air. Geoffrey Turner is a tax lawyer. He is a former Conservative candidate, and he is with Davies in Toronto, and he joins me right now because I want to put the question to you. As I said, I used to think that too, that, okay, they just want more money, they're taxing us. But there's more to it than just getting money.
Well, you're right, Stephen, that historically the primary purpose of our tax system was to raise revenues in a neutral way, in an equitable way, neutral without distorting market decisions of taxpayers. We're a market economy. We want taxpayers to engage in the market without being influenced by the tax system. But my
what do you mean being influenced by the tax system?
By being subject to taxes that penalize certain behaviors or incentivize other behaviors, and that influence decision makers, interfere with capital markets, interfere with taxpayers making their own decisions.
Okay, so one of those things, it's always called the sin taxes. And it used to be, for tobacco or for alcohol, it would go up. That doesn't stop anybody from smoking or drinking. But it's more than that, though.
There are absolutely some taxes that are intended to address market imperfections or market failures, and that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about the current government's use of the tax system to purposefully influence decisions. I'll give you some examples. How about the share buyback tax? So that's a tax that is intended to address the government's perception that too many public corporations are spending too much of their after-tax retained earnings buying back their shares. And in order to discourage that, the government several years ago put a 2% tax on the amount of shares bought back. That was deliberately intended to encourage them to redeploy their capital into their businesses rather than buying back shares.
So, it's not a simple matter, but clearly I would say it's nefarious. The government is trying to do through one instrument, taxation, what it would not able to do otherwise.
It is a use of the tax system as one of the many policy levers or policy instruments that's available to the government. And it's absolutely, taxes do influence behavior, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. The tax system should aspire to be as neutral as possible.
Or maybe, as you put it, maybe they shouldn't do that, but if they're doing that, they, meaning the bureaucrats in the government, because most MPs, I know a lot of them, have no idea what they're passing when they pass the tax rules. I didn't read that. But should at least the government say what the alternative purpose of it is for?
Well, they should, and there are other policy instruments, regulations and so on, that maybe can address some of these matters better than distortions in the tax system. Another example, the housing affordability crisis. That was being blamed in part on foreigners who were buying homes in Canada and leaving them vacant. So what did the government do? They imposed an underused housing tax to discourage foreigners from buying homes and leaving them vacant. When really that's something that could be done by the cities of Toronto or Vancouver if those are truly parts of the problem.
More meddling. Geoffrey, thanks for explaining it. 3 minutes. This show provides independent analysis of the issues. We are not paid by the government. And as I am finding, so much business in Canada relies upon various governments that they don't want to sponsor or advertise on a show which may become controversial, which talks about liberty, freedoms, sometimes criticizes government. I've had guests on that support the government. But people are saying, you know what? We don't want to bite the hand that feeds us, i.e. government, which is why I hope you'll subscribe and contribute to keep this show on the air.